Okay, everyone can find your seat. I'm going to share with you what we're doing tonight. Seems like we're missing a couple folks. So I don't know if you need to send someone back to the house since we're final roundup or if we're good. I think we're good. So welcome back. So we have kind of a judgment on behalf of the team tonight. We were all just talking kind of about where the group is at and where we all are at about this evening. And so we've actually made a decision just to honor kind of like the space of everybody processing all of the material that we've already been through today, which has been a lot, and especially thinking about applying that material to the work that we're doing back home and what those ramifications are. It can be a lot to think about. So we're actually going to push the conversation about absorption and mass training into tomorrow, which is a really, really important conversation, but we're going to give just like a little bit more space to our brains tonight. So how does that feel with people?
Awesome.
Good? Okay, cool. So what we're going to do tonight instead is first we're going to hear first we're going to hear a little bit from Paul and his brother Mark, who actually this is Mark's last night with us. But we're going to have the privilege of hearing from them about the book project that they're working on, which is like highly, highly related to all of this material, which is really exciting. And then we're going to have a little bit of a longer reflection together, and then we'll have time just to chill. There's going to be a campfire. Nice. And so, yeah, it should be a really lovely night. So why don't we welcome Paul and Mark?
So before I hand it off to my brother, I want to say this, that like I said, I was very arrogant when I came into this training with these Serbian revolutionaries. I'm like, why in the hell are they training me how to do all this stuff? And then in a matter of the day, my question was, why in the hell don't I know about this stuff? And why isn't anybody written about this stuff that I can actually digest, right? And some people, they say, well, just read Gene Sharp. I read Gene Sharp in college, and to be honest with you, it like put me to sleep, and I didn't understand how it applied at all. And but their training was amazing. Their training blew my mind. And then they created a training manual that also is it's very hard to digest, right? So. Really, I started realizing that we need to do a lot of translation work to systematize it, and we need writing. So it's not just training, we also have books and articles that we can give people to explain these concepts, right? That you guys, I think, are having the same experience I have. So I'm really grateful that I come from a family where we're all leftist, and my brother's a great writer, and we share a little bit of a brain. So my brother and I have been working, and we got arrested in A16, and we were thrown in the same jail cell. Aww. It's true. Well, we actually, they were pairing up people, like one out of every 4 people in line, and sometimes they would hit you if you went out of line, but they turned around and we rearranged each other so we could be in the same jail cell together. And we had the same issues in the jail cell that we did growing up in our room.
The issue being that Paul is a Slav.
I share everything with my brother, and he takes it for granted. I saw him from the jailers.
That is true. He did a nice thing for me in the jail. He smuggled in a pen and he gave me his pen. Which is very sweet. But on the Slav point, at home you have a bunch of junk and you have your clothes all over, whatever. In the jail cell, we had nothing. We didn't have belongings or whatever. And he's still, if you look at his he had like his blanket all bunched up.
We're stopping on the family drama now. Moving on. The point is that we've been thinking about how to systematize, and before, Carlos did a great job in helping us systematize, because that's his specialty, and I'm so grateful for that. If I didn't have him, there's no way we could put together this training, and that's his specialty. But Mark's specialty is that he really thinks about how to write about this stuff and put it in a form that people can read in narrative, like using narratives. And because of that, your participant guide, half of everything that's written in there has been written either by me and Mark, or just Mark. right? So it's an incredible contribution, and already we've had a series of articles that are all about these concepts, right? They're really, that's all what they're about. And we got a book contract with The Nation that they are supporting us to produce a book. But as things go with the publishing industry and everything, it's very important that we get the support from the base to do this book. It's not just about us, it's about the base and getting your support. So we need people to promote the book. We need people, we also would like it if you could be on our email list, because a lot of people don't hear about our articles because we publish them in Waging Nonviolence, and a lot of people don't subscribe to Waging Nonviolence. So I just want to get a show of hands of who here doesn't want to get our articles. That would be about the same. That would be great. You don't want my articles?
Dilemma action. Dilemma action.
Yeah.
Mark in the eyes.
Look, we were talking about this and we thought we could, pass around the list or whatever, but, at the same time, we're assuming because you're here, this is probably stuff you're interested in. But seriously, no offense, if you just need to unsubscribe or if you just want to talk to us afterward or whatever, it's, we'll just not send you, not put you on the list, that's no problem. I mean, it's not personal. So, organizers, I get it, you get a million emails and whatever.
Yeah. So maybe we should say it the exact opposite. So we won't know, who here wants to be on our email list? Okay,
Are you sure?
thank you very much. I'll just hand it off to my brother.
Well, I would just say a few things about it. One thing I wanted to talk about is sort of like what's old and what's new about the ideas that we're talking about in this training. And I think that it's the experience of coming to this training is like, wow, it's like a lot of new ideas, it's a lot of new concepts, it's maybe a different vocabulary than we've used before to talk about movements, and so like a lot of it feels new. And I've had this experience for a long time too, because I talked to my brother about this. He comes with these ideas, and I'm like, yeah, Paul, is he just sort of making this stuff up, like, what's going on here, structural momentum, whatever. And what's been amazing working on this book is really trying to dig in to movements of the past and look into the history of, where these things are coming from. And what we've seen just again and again is like, yeah, it's new stuff that we're talking about, but these are the same debates that movements are having throughout history, right? And it's the same issues that people were debating about again and again, movement after movement. And for me, it's been an incredibly powerful experience to look into movements and to draw that out and to have an analytical frame for looking at that. So looking at the civil rights movement, and you have SNCC, right, saying we need to go into communities and we need to burrow down and stay there long term. And their critique of SCLC is they come in, they put on a big show, they draw the media, and then Martin Luther King skips town and leaves us to deal with the mess, right? And it's this classic, and yet those big mobilizations, right, are creating some of the defining images of the movement. And so you have this tension. I'm like, damn, that is the same tension between the structure and momentum that we're talking about, and it's played out again and again. And you can look at Gandhi and how they deal with this in India, right? What is the role of an organization like the Indian National Congress, and then how does that compare to these, to the campaigns of Satyagraha? In a career, what's amazing about Gandhi too is it's like a 60-year activist. I mean, it's like a 20, 30-year non-activist career, and then 60 years of active, like a tremendous lifetime. And we experience these things. Something happens and it goes away. I mean, in Gandhi's life, he would do a major campaign and then not do activism or not do a campaign for another 5 years or 8 years or something like this. But to see those same tensions in that movement, in environmental movements of the 70s, in ACT UP, and some of these same debates playing out, that's been a really powerful thing. And then another thing that really resonated with me today is, ultimately a lot of this stuff is not either or stuff, right? We need to figure out ways to integrate and ways to bring different models together. And I think that this is something that people talk a lot about too. We need like inside-outside strategies to politics, right? Yeah, you need the insiders, but you need outside pressure and Main Street heating movements, But I think what's hit us again and again is that there's so much money, so much attention, so much focus that goes into the inside part of that equation, right? The idea of lobbying, the idea of how legislative deals get cut. This is the entirety of the mainstream media discussion about how politics happen, right? And there's so little about the science of what goes into outside movements. Like what is, if we agree that inside-outside is the answer here, how can we know so much more about inside than about outside, and that we're not talking about outside? And the other thing that someone mentioned today that's powerful about this is that one reason that people don't do it is because there is no frame of reference, right? And to learn that this is actually a field, right? This is a field of study. This is something that we're not making up, right? That movements have grappled with. And sometimes, because it doesn't get documented, it's people independently in different parts of the world reinventing the wheel, right? And it's people coming to the same, I think it's the experience that a lot of people come to a training like this. They learn a vocabulary and they say, oh yeah, these are things that we were dealing with already, but we didn't really necessarily talk about them in the same way. To learn that there's a field and to look at the development of that field over the last 100 years has been really powerful for me to see, to just see that develop, to see those moments where things are independently recreated, but also to see those moments where things are actually handed from one person to another, right? So where you have Tolstoy and Gandhi writing to each other, where you have civil rights people then going to India and taking that tradition to the U.S., where you have anti-nuclear people learning from the civil rights movement, doing Clamshell Alliance here, creating a direct action tradition that gets replicated in California in the fight to save the redwoods, that gets then translated into Seattle and the global justice movement, that then carries forward into Occupy. And some of these things, where did this come from, right? Where do those affinity groups come from? Like, there's sort of an answer to that, right? Like, once you learn about the traditions, it was amazing to me to see, like, oh, I experienced that in a movement, and either I thought we made it up, or like, I just didn't know, and to see that, to trace out some of those lineages, and to sort of recognize that this is a field, has been an amazing thing. And then those moments where this stuff has been codified, to see the Birmingham model become a reality, and SCLC and King sit down and say, this is actually, we're going to write a paper on this. They wrote a paper called, after Birmingham, called How to Crack a Hardcore City, where they laid out their principles. This is our model of how we're going to do mass mobilization, right? And the Serbians had the same experience, right? They recreated the wheel a little bit, drawing from some of their own traditions, but also getting a little bit from the academic tradition that was coming in through Gene Sharp, and learning a little bit from the Gandhian tradition, a little bit here and there. And then they said, hey, we need to, let's take the extra step to sit down and codify that tradition. And in some ways, this training comes out of that, right? Because it comes out of their effort on an international level to codify this stuff and to teach this internationally. And then the next step has been, how do we talk about that in the United States, right? How do we take a model that's been all about defeating dictators and has tremendous power, but bring that into a democratic context? Bring that into a context where we need to challenge something like corporate power, right? Well, that's hard, right? It's not a dictator, it's corporate power, right? Or to challenge, we need to challenge patriarchy, right? We need to challenge, like, it's, wow, that's like a hard transition, and try to figure out how to do that in a U.S. context. So that's really what's been exciting to us. That's been what's powerful for me, burrowing into that research, and that's what we're trying to sort of crank out now. So I guess I want to, we're asking for people's support, but I also just want to thank you for me to get the feedback of people like engaging with this, people who are actually out in the world organizing, and see people, being very open about engaging with these ideas, to get the direct feedback, this is working, this is not working, this is making sense, this is not making sense. Like, that to me is incredibly valuable, and so I feel really grateful to be here for as long as I've been able to be here. So thank you.
Well, we just have a couple more things before we wrap up tonight, and the first one is just a short reflection. It will help us a lot to know the answers to 2 questions from you all. So the first one is just, what was your biggest learning or your biggest takeaway from today?
The second one is, are there still any topics that are unclear, questions that you have, or recommendations for us to make tomorrow even better for you? And these are things that we will, you don't have to put your name on it, you can if you want, but we will review as a team so that we can make sure that the next 2 days are even more kind of productive and fulfilling than the last. So I'm gonna pass a pile of these sheets around. I also have pens. So if you need a pen, I'll just place the pens in the middle of the room if you need to grab one.
And we're gonna take a couple of minutes, I'm gonna put on some music, so this is definitely private reflections, there won't be any talking happening in the space. And take a few moments to fill this out, and then we're gonna share in pairs. So a few minutes to fill this out.